And in Palestine, Israel is stepping up demolitions in the occupied West Bank, and in Gaza, glimmers of hope and happiness as mass weddings take action. All this is lined up, but first, the headlines. Israel is choking the occupied West Bank. Now Tel Aviv is carrying on new fresh rounds of demolitions. On the other side, in Gaza, Palestinians still are suffering from the aftermath of the war. But in a sign of hope and happiness, they carried on mass weddings. Take a look at this report.
There are new signs of escalation in Gaza and the West Bank. This is a ceasefire that remains on paper. Israeli forces launched fresh demolition operations in eastern Gaza City, pushing beyond the so-called Yellow Line. A boundary meant to separate troop positions from Palestinian homes. In the West Bank, Israeli occupation forces announced plans to completely demolish dozens of homes in the Jenin refugee camp. This is a part of an ongoing military campaign that has already destroyed more than 700 homes since it began over 300 days ago. Two Palestinian teenagers were killed by the IDF in separate incidents in Hebron and Ramallah. In Gaza, residents say that the Yellow Line has been crossed almost daily. In Tufa and Shujaia, entire blocks were torn down, explosives detonated, and gunfire rang out around the Bureij refugee camp, where one person was killed. Heavy shelling was also heard near Khan Yunis, inside areas designated as no-strike zones under the ceasefire terms.
Gada, wake up, Gada. Gada, I swear you were just with me and you gave me a banana to eat. You insisted I stay over for lunch. Gada, my love, my cousin, Gada. Gada, please get up, Gada. Gada, answer me, Gada.
As these incidents mount, international pressure is rising. The UK called on Israel to open all routes immediately and allow a far greater flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza, warning that access has become a life or death issue. Yet, amid the destruction, there were rare scenes of joy in Khan Yunis, where 54 couples celebrated a mass wedding in the ruins of Gaza. An event supported by Abu Dhabi as part of the UAE's Union Day commemorations. Under the UAE's Gallant Night 3 humanitarian operation, families gathered with flags, flowers and songs, a moment of hope in a region shattered by war.
We are really happy and joyful on this day that God made these children happy after a war, killing and the loss of many loved ones and neighbors, and the destruction of our homes. This wedding gave us a big occasion for all people from Rafah to Beit Hanun.
Organizers say more than 2,600 applicants entered the lottery for a chance to take part. a measure of how desperately people are trying to hold on to life beyond survival. Amid this, there is a new development at the Rafah border. Israel says it will reopen the crossing in the coming days for Palestinians seeking to exit Gaza under a system supervised by a European Union delegation, similar to the one used earlier this year. But Egypt has denied any coordination with Israel so far, leaving the timing and mechanism uncertain. All of this is happening in a Gaza Strip devastated by 2 years of war.
Israel says it has new intelligence that it would put on the table. Evidence of Hezbollah's rearmament. And as tensions grow on the Lebanese borders and strikes continue, there's a rare face-to-face taking form as diplomats from Israel and Lebanon sit in the same room under the US-led ceasefire mechanism. A one-year-old truce is stretching itself. We tell you more in this report.
Israel says it is ready to unveil new intelligence to the United States. According to officials, information points to Hezbollah quietly replenishing its weapons stockpiles in Lebanon. A claim that, if validated, could reset the entire strategic calculus along the northern border. And it comes a day after that marked a stunning shift in regional diplomacy, for the first time since the ceasefire was established a year ago. Israel and Lebanon sent diplomatic representatives to a meeting of the US-led ceasefire monitoring committee. This committee, created to keep the peace after the deadliest Israel-Hezbollah clash in decades, has mostly operated behind closed doors with uniforms, not suits.
This is a historic development. Be in no doubt that this direct meeting between Israel and Lebanon took place as a result of Prime Minister Netanyahu's efforts to change the face of the Middle East.
But the step into the diplomatic arena reflects how fragile the situation has become, and how urgent the conversations now are. For Israel, the message is clear. If Hezbollah does not disarm as required under the truce, and if the Lebanese government does not move faster, Tel Aviv warns that it will expand its military operations. Washington has repeated those concerns, warning that a new offensive could be on the horizon if diplomacy fails. But inside Lebanon, the reality is far more complex. Hezbollah is not just an armed faction, it is a player with deep political and community roots. And as long as Israel continues operations on Lebanese territory, many in Lebanon see disarmament as a non-starter. Analysts say pushing the issue too hard could risk internal instability and open new fault lines inside the country. Still, Lebanon's President Joseph Aoun has signaled a willingness to engage, to look for a framework that could lock in a more enduring peace. But even that idea is controversial in a nation that has never formally been at peace with Israel since 1948. The meeting took place on Lebanese territory near the border and was attended by U.S. envoy Morgan Ortagus, who has been pushing to broaden these talks since the ceasefire began. The U.S. Embassy said the presence of diplomats from both countries shows a commitment to security, stability, and durable peace. But the real question looms. Can diplomatic-level dialogue hold back a potential escalation? Or is this a last round of talks before a new chapter of conflict?
There is a major change, a major shift in the politics across West Asia, a region which has been defined by secret channels. wars, proxy powers, is now changing its form. A region where the axis of resistance binds Iran to many groups from Yemen to Iraq to Lebanon is now seeing a shift. Is this axis breaking under its own pressure? We take a look.
Iran, long seen as the nodal point of a network of allied groups in West Asia, is now privately admitting something extraordinary. It is losing control of its most powerful remaining partners. In Yemen, the Houthis, who have struck international shipping lanes and expanded their own military capacity, are no longer reportedly taking orders from Tehran. According to the Telegraph, Iranian officials say they have gone rogue. They do not listen like they used to. This is not just Yemen, even some groups in Iraq, once closely aligned with Iran, are now operating on their own timeline, following their own interests. Tehran's 4-decade strategy of projecting power through regional partners is under strain like never before. This comes after Hezbollah's losses and after the decimation of Hamas's command structure in Gaza. Iran is leaning heavily on the Houthis, its last reliable arm in the region, and yet, even there, the relationship is fractured. A senior IRGC commander, Abdul Reza Shalehi, has been rushed back to Sana'a in a desperate attempt to restore order and coordination. According to reports, even IRGC officials privately admit the landscape has changed. The Houthis have their own networks, their own supply lines, and their own political ambitions. Years of Israeli airstrikes have made them harder to track, harder to influence, and far more independent. The geography of Yemen, their mountains, the caves, the rugged terrain has become their advantage. Meanwhile, Iran, once a central player in talks across the region, was absent from the Gaza ceasefire negotiations in Sharm el-Sheikh. The axis that once operated like a single command structure is now a loose network of actors following their own paths. And as Iran tries to hold the edges together, these groups are behaving less like proxies and more like independent forces with their own priorities. As one analyst put it, it's a franchise. They work together when it suits them and break away when it doesn't. The result is West Asia entering a new unpredictable phase where old alliances are fracturing.
West Asia is not only suffering from conflicts in the region, it is now also suffering from the ripples of the Russia-Ukraine war, a war that is happening hundreds of kilometers away. Turkey is warning of an escalation. The next report tells you more.
Another commercial tanker comes under attack in the Black Sea. Turkey is furious, the third incident in just a few days. The earlier two attacks have been claimed by Ukraine. It is a sign that the Russia-Ukraine conflict is now spilling into critical trade corridors linked to West Asia. The latest vessel hit was the Mid-Volga II, a sunflower oil tanker sailing from Russia towards Georgia, when an attack struck about 80 nautical miles off Turkey's coast. All 13 crew members are safe, and the ship continued on to the port of Sinop. But for Ankara, this is a red line. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has called the strikes a worrying escalation. He even said Turkey cannot accept attacks that threaten navigation inside its exclusive economic zone.
The recent attacks in the Black Sea, in particular, have demonstrated how justified the warnings we, as Turkey, have been making since the very beginning, because the geography of the war is spreading, The methods used are becoming more widespread, and the geography is widespreading. This is a very scary thing.
What is happening here matters far beyond the Black Sea. This is where energy routes, food supply lines, and shipping channels connect Europe to West Asia. Any instability here pushes risk and cost directly into the region. Insurance markets are already feeling the pressure. War risk premiums for ships entering the Black Sea have spiked sharply. War risk premiums are an additional fee charged by insurers to cover the increased risk of loss to a vessel due to war. This as underwriters reassess a growing threat that now targets non-military commercial vessels. For Ukrainian ports, war risk premiums have risen to about 0.5% of a ship's value. For Russian ports, even higher. That means more expensive shipping and more uncertainty for countries in West Asia that rely on these routes for oil, grain, and trade. Kiev's tactic is clear: pressure Moscow by striking at its maritime economy. But the fallout is now touching regional players who were never part of this war. As the Black Sea heats up, West Asia finds itself caught in the crossfire of a conflict that is not confined to its original front lines.
Sands of West Asia are moving. A major strategic alliance is cemented between India and the UAE. This as Abu Dhabi halts visas for Pakistanis, citing there is a surge in criminal activities. We bring you the story.
A 6-page accord that could redraw travel maps. On 26 November 2025, India and the United Arab Emirates met for the 6th session of their Joint Consular Committee. The result, faster visas, better consular access for Indians. For millions of Indians living and working in UAE, it promises simplicity, streamlined processing, clearer legal protection, swifter extradition, or legal aid support if crisis hits. Officials outlined joint mechanisms to handle mutual legal assistance and extradition, giving Indian expatriates a new layer of security under the umbrella of a long-standing strategic friendship. At the same time, the UAE has sharply restricted visas for Pakistani citizens. According to senior Pakistani government sources, the UAE has suspended issuing visas to most Pakistanis, citing concerns over rising crime and misuse of visa categories, though the country reportedly refrained from officially banning Pakistani passports. That dual move signals more than immigration policy. It speaks of shifting geopolitics. The UAE, once a broad gateway for many in South Asia, appears recalibrating ties regionally, opening lanes for India, tightening them for Pakistan. The bilateral trade between the India and UAE has been on the upswing. The trade between the two nations crossed USD 106 billion in FY 2024-25, reflecting a robust increase of 19.6% and reaffirming the UAE's position as one of India's key trading partners. For Indian travelers, professionals, students and families, this cooperation could mean smoother entries, faster consular help and reduced paperwork. For Pakistan, uncertainty looms. Legal experts say the new India-UAE framework may include faster extradition protocols, shared criminal databases, and better coordination on fraud and document verification, all under the larger umbrella of consular access reforms. In a region where alliances shift and borders blur, this is a message: West Asia is rethinking old equations. For India and UAE trade, people, businesses, dreams, the door stands open. For others, the rules may have changed. Bureau Report.
Now let's take a look at what other major stories are making the headlines across West Asia.
The United States and Syrian forces say they have taken out 15 weapon storage sites linked to the Islamic State in southern Syria. The operations were carried out between November 24th and 27th across the Rif Damashq region, involving targeted airstrikes and controlled ground demolitions. US says the joint effort destroyed more than 130 mortars and rockets, along with rifles, machine guns, anti-tank devices and materials used to make explosive devices. Washington says the latest operation is part of ongoing efforts to prevent the group from rebuilding its capabilities even years after it lost control of territory in Syria and Iraq. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper said the mission helps ensure that earlier gains remain secure. This also comes shortly after President Donald Trump met Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara in Washington on November 10th. Discussions that included Syria's request for easing American sanctions. Pope Leo wrapped up his first overseas trip with a powerful stop in Beirut. He prayed at the 2020 port explosion site, now a national symbol of stalled justice and political paralysis. Families of the 218 people killed stood holding photos of their loved ones as Leo walked through the scorched grounds. He paused for silent prayer at the memorial, then met each family member, offering comfort beside the last standing grain silo and the burned out cars that still mark the blast zone. 5 years later, no official has been held accountable, and repeated delays in the investigation have fueled public anger. For many Lebanese, this explosion remains proof of deep-rooted impunity after years of economic and political crisis. Relatives said the Pope's presence sends a clear message that the country must confront the truth and deliver justice. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has formally asked President Isaac Herzog for a pardon, seeking to end the long-running corruption cases against him. Herzog's office says he will consult legal officials before making any decision, calling the request significant and extraordinary. There's no timeline yet for a ruling. Netanyahu has been on trial for 5 years in 3 separate cases involving claims of improper gifts, media influence, and regulatory favors. He denies all allegations, calling the proceedings politically motivated. In a video message, he said he had hoped to fight the charges in court, but argued that continuing the trial was tearing the country apart and that national interests demanded closure. Opposition leaders quickly pushed back, saying any pardon must come only after any admission of guilt, remorse, and Netanyahu's exit from political life. The request comes weeks after US President Donald Trump urged Herzog to grant a full pardon during a meeting in Washington.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week in a brand new lineup, always bringing you the most recent updates, news, and ground reports from the world's most volatile region. I'm your host, Redi Francis, signing off from Beirut, Lebanon. For more global news, keep on watching WION World is One.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.